Africa is the cradle of civilization. One of the first human civilizations on earth was the Egyptian civilization, and it was here on the African continent. The three great religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, their founders all took refuge here when they had problems in the Middle East. Moses was here in Africa. That's where he survived. That's why he survived. Jesus was brought here as a baby when the Jews wanted to kill him. Muhammad, when his Arabs wanted to kill him, he ran to Ethiopia. That is Africa.
Shalom. All praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Bahasham Achapadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere care. This is your brother Abawan back here with another video, and basically you have, I believe that was the president of one of these African nations, and I did not see the information of which African nation exactly it was, and they weren't exactly courteous enough to put his name. Okay, so basically you have a president of one of these African nations, and he made a speech concerning history and concerning how Africa has basically been the cradle of civilization and a refuge and blah blah blah, so on and so forth. And basically the whole narrative that he's just trying to push is he's trying to push that Pan-African or Afrocentric narrative, and he's not just pushing it to anybody because, and it's also something that I brought up before. Whenever you hear the term African, all right, basically what they're trying to say is Jake here in Africa, right? Because every time you hear the term Africa, they're always talking about it's always Jake that they're talking about. So either he's trying to connect Jake that is in Babylon the Great to Africa, or that he's talking about Jake here in Africa. Whenever they talk about Africa, whenever anybody talks about Africa, they always talk about Jake. But what they do, and this is very deceptive and part of the cause for you know Babylonians, basically they will tell you about how you are African, and basically that you are from Africa, your true heritage, your true nationality, which is the Hebrew Israelites, does not matter. So here you have this individual, that self-same president. He's trying to overplay the importance of Africa in ancient history or in the ancient world. Now, yes, you did have Africans, starting civilization with them, Nimrod and them, but that's just wickedness, okay? And it's not a true kingdom or a true civilization because it wasn't established in righteousness or in the laws, the statutes, and the commandments of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahshai. But basically, what these people, right, these Pan African Afrocentric type that want to make Africa seem like the center of basically they want to make Africa seem like the center of basically I don't know what term to use, whether it's center of humanity or center of human advancement is because you know they want to put that label upon you, the label of being an African, quote unquote African, which is another byword and proverb that Esau uses against our people in this kingdom, because you have to remember, where does the name African come from? It comes from the Greek, right, devil, the Eusebio Africanus, after he defeated Hannibal Barca, one of the great men in Israel, a powerful general right there. That's a genius right there, a genius tactician. And he was defeated by this devil, okay? And because of that defeat, he got the right to name the continent which he had conquered, which is why you have the name Africa being used to this day. So even that term already shows you where the mindset of these people are in, and they are still in captivity under Esau Edom, even though they are talking about, raising up the people who are all Africans, African empowerment, African and Afrocentric ideologies. They are still under the mindset of this kingdom because they are still using the bywords and the proverbs of this kingdom. You are still calling yourselves African. You are still calling yourselves black. You are still calling yourselves all these names that Esau Edom and labeled and put on you but not by your true nationality, your true heritage, your true name, which is the Hebrew Israelites according to the scriptures. I'm not getting mistaken, because what he's basically saying, he said that what the three Abrahamic religions, because that's already all it is, where you have your Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, all had to flee to Africa at one point in order to protect their, basically the leaders of it. She mentioned our Lord Yahushua, he mentioned King Moses. I said King Moses, yeah, he mentioned King Moses, and he also mentioned that, that false prophet, Muhammad. Okay. But once again, Africa did not make our people great. Our people made Africa great. Okay. The Egyptian empire benefited far more from our people being in captivity under them than anything else, which is why they held them fast and refused to let them go. And the scriptures even tells you that to this day, the people are still out here doing the same thing, which is why these Africans don't want to let you Jake go, especially the Southern Kingdom, right? Because these Hamites know, and of course that kid I was talking, his spirit was kind of like his spirit was Jake, okay? So I believe he was an Israelite, but for the most part, these Hamites, because this Africa is filled with Hamites, just because they have dark skin does not necessarily mean that they are of our people. Zechariah 11 verse 4. Thus saith Yahweh of my power, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Right, because anywhere our people were in captivity, if you go back to the history of Egypt, like we were talking about, one of the first civilizations. But what made Egypt great? The fact that our people were working under them, built up the pyramids and built up the Egyptian empire. Okay, Jake is the one that made Jake made Egypt great by the labor that we put in during our captivity under the Egyptian empire. And the proof of that is, notice what happened immediately after our people left, right? Egypt was never the same again. It had these times of strength and its times of, fragility and weakness, but they never got to that height that it was in when our people were in captivity in it, okay? And that's why you see the throughout history, the basically the Egyptian Empire, or Egypt as a whole, had a very shaky history, and it was eventually taken over. Okay, because once again, Egypt, or rather Africa, did not make our people. Okay, and our people are definitely not Africans, but rather we made Africa great. The reason why you wouldn't have anybody even talking about this continent is because Jake is here, spreading that flavor. And mainly because of our people that were taken from that transatlantic or triangular slave trade all the way to the Americas. Okay, they are the ones, ultimately it's Jake over there in Babylon the Great that are pushing this Pan Africanism and this whole Afrocentrism the most, because all the people that believe in Kemet, right? All the people that believe, they are Africa, all these African, basically the pro black, the pro African or Pan African mindset. It's all Jake in Babylon the Great, trying to quote unquote reconnect with their roots. But once again, the problem now represents itself again. Your roots don't go back to Africa. Africa is just a migratory point. Okay, we were refugees in Africa, fleeing the Roman persecution. Your roots go back to the land of Israel. And that's the confusion that has been set up in this time, where basically our people believe that, they are Africans, right? Let me see, I want to get this precept. I'll start with this one and I'll get the main point. Hittites was thy father, I believe that's how that precept goes. And thy mother, here it is, here it is. This should be it right here. So this is the book of Ezekiel 16, verse 1, and it reads, again, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, thus saith the one Yahweh unto Jerusalem, thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother an Hittite. And as for thy nativity, in the day thou wast born, thy neighbor was not caught, neither was thou splashed in water to suckle thee. that was not well salted or not swaddled at all. So you can make the argument that our people, the nation of Israel, started in the land of Ham, okay, which is the real name for the continent of Africa. And like right, and you can also say that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, before we went into the Egyptian captivity, they also lived in the quote unquote land of Canaan at the time. But realistically, that we are also living in the Holy Land, where they live in the land of Canaan at the time. So you can't make that argument. But at the end of the day, it is a false argument, and this is the reason why. And let's get that precept as it's written. But Jerusalem, which is above, right? Jerusalem, which is above, is the mother of us all. And I believe that was the Apostle Paul that said that. Let me find that precept. Let me just type in more. Jerusalem, which is above. Here it is. So this is the book of Galatians 4, and I'll start from, Galatians 4. Okay, let me just start from the top. Galatians 4, verse 21. Tell me that desire to be under the law. Do you not hear the law? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by a bondmaid and the other by a free woman. And this is actually telling that this is the spirit right here, because this shows, you know, what makes our people different. Why is it that we have to stress that we, as the Israelites, we do not come from Africa, and we are not the same as Africans? Just like you have in the Young's Bible Dictionary, one of the earlier editions, it tells you that the Negroes are a completely different group of people and race of people from the actual sons of Ham, or the biblical sons of Ham. Okay, to continue, so it shows you the distinction between Abraham's two sons, and we'll of course read more into that. Let me continue going on. Galatians 4, verse 23. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise. Right? So the difference between our people, which are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and other Hamites, okay, and other and the rest of the heathen, including Elam as well, are dark skinned just like us, right? Is the fact that we are called, or we are born of the Spirit, okay, born of promise, right? But anyway, continuing on, Galatians 4:24, which things are an allegory for. These are the two covenants, the one from Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. And that's the main point right there. The Jerusalem, and of course, it's talking about, the kingdom of Israel that our Lord Yahushua is preparing. That is the mother of us, or that is where our people belong. That is our true nationality, or our true heritage. And when you talk about, whenever when you talk about your home, right, your motherland, right, because you always have Jake talking about the motherland, the motherland. Or that is the true motherland, which is the chariots, okay, or the new Jerusalem that our Lord Yahushua is bringing. It's not even the current land that the current land that's of Israel right now. That's why we are completely divorced. Okay, we as a people have been divorced from that land. Okay, that land is not, or that does not matter to us, concerning inheritance, or concerning inheritance, or basically reparations, right? We get, regaining the land of Israel. But the real Jerusalem, the real land of Israel are looking for, is the one that Allah Yahushua is bringing at His return. Okay, so this is our true nationality. This is our true heritage, not to be Africans, right? Not to try and make it seem as though by putting some terms and some words out of context, that basically Africa contributed so much to our people as a whole, when really it did not. All it represented, or that all it is a place of refuge when it's a place of refuge when you're running from your enemies. Okay, the reason why our Lord Yahushua was able to go to the land of Egypt and hide himself was not only because the Egyptians looked exactly and had the same phenotype as Israelites. Okay, another cuts to you, Kwakitaki Christians and you small hearts as well, but mainly because, and it's funny that I think about it right now, Yeah, there is a lot of backlash going on about the Cleopatra documentary, right? Especially you have the whole country of Egypt trying to sue Netflix for the documentary, but yet you had a former president of Egypt, the one that was in power during the 1948 declaration, state that there will never be war as long as who the small hearts inherit the land because they left black and came back white. So even these jakes, or like even these not jakes like but these heathen that are constantly fighting against the idea of you know their the ancient people being dark skinned people being Jake, right? Of the idea of being the ancient Israelites, the prophets, the and so being Jake, at the end of the day you still have to accept that, okay, this is what no one our people to be in that position, right? To be in that position of authority, which is why they are so confederate coming together against us. But the time will come, and right now, you have the truth being shared or being shared all over the earth. And the time is coming when people start to realize just how much of an impact our people, which is the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, had on history, had on the things that happened on the earth, and the real reason why you have people talking about Africa as a continent, is because of Jake, right? Moses, the reason why Moses was even in the land of Egypt was because he was in captivity. Not as though he went to go and run and hide and had a seek refuge there. So that shows you that one point one of the points that he made was false. And the Lord Yahushua went to go and hide in Egypt because there were a lot of Israelites, Jake, in Egypt at the time. Because that was, especially when you talk about the time of the Babylonian captivity, because that was the norm for our people. Whenever anything got too hot, Jake would always migrate to or go to the east, which is exactly what our Lord Yahushai told our people to do concerning the abomination of desolation, right? That is in the book of Matthew 24. Then that should be, here it is. Oh, that's the spirit right there. Matthew 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let him which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the house step not come down to take anything of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and unto them that give stock in those days. Pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Or when he says flee to the mountains, he's talking about fleeing to the west, okay, west of our nation, west of Jerusalem, which is of course the land of Egypt, where you had so many of our people already settled in there, which is why Joseph and Mary was able to hide, or that were able to hide their child, our Lord Yahushua in the land of Egypt. And aside from the fact that the Most High, Yahushua was guiding and protecting them as well, So I cannot aside from the fact, but that's the primary reason right there. And this one includes, and this is part of the inclusion, or rather the inclusionary reason of that as well. First and foremost, the Most High Yahushua was protecting them, and secondly, okay, the hid among their people in the land of Egypt, make it more difficult to spot them. Okay, so there is no um, Pan Africanism or greatness of Africa that we all need to calm down and recall, because it's not every black person that you see out here that actually comes from the land of Ham, okay, or is of the Egyptians, okay, or is of the Cushites or whatever, or basically all the different tribes. Let's go and get that as well. Let's go and get that as well, just to show you that our people do not come from the tribe of Ham, because there is no. Let's go and get that. Let's go and get the sons of Ham. And this is the book of Genesis 10, verse 6. The sons of Ham, Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan. And all the sons of Ham are already represented by the nations. Cush, of course, being the Ethiopians, Mitzrayim being the Egyptians, Phut being the North Africans, and Canaan, okay, being basically Palestine, being Palestine. That is who the different Ham. Okay, and Jake, which are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, especially you so-called Negroes, are not a part of them. So a total individual right there, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh, Ba'asham Rakak, Wadash, Wa Abad Babal, and through the spirit of you, Akim, your pastor edified. Shalom.